Let's start our class today with Kitab Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin. Rahim Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladzina an'amta 'alaihim ghairil maghdubi 'alaihim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Thank you everyone for joining in today. So for this last class, okay, I just want to do kind of preparation for you, okay, for your final assessment, okay. And the paper that I give is basically the previous semester's final assessment, okay. So why I give it to you is basically for you to have a feeling on how exactly would you have to answer your final assessment, okay. Because your final assessment will be an open book, okay, open book assessment, but it will be a very limited time, okay. So you imagine like this paper is only 3 hours, okay. So you have to also learn to manage your time, okay. Just share this, okay. So yeah, so last semester the time was at 10:30 until 1:30, okay. But for this semester it will be at 9 a.m. until 12 a.m. okay. So my question is there anyone that cannot attend this session, okay, this exam during that session, okay. So if you cannot attend, this is the only chance for you to tell me so that I have to tell the management to change the time, okay. Let me just share with you the schedule. Okay, so basically for principles of economics, it will be Tuesday, okay, 28th of June. Okay, so you have less than 2 weeks, okay, to prepare for the assessment, okay. And also remember that you have a quiz that I have already given, and I will give you another quiz which is a macro quiz, and that will also count as your final marks later on, okay. Do you see the slides? Sorry, do you see the document here that I've shared?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay, so it will be 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. Malaysia time, yeah. So what will be done is basically I will upload the document on Microsoft Teams, and you will be able to access it at 9 a.m. Perhaps I will give it earlier, 8:45 a.m. So you can already access it, and I will give you the answer sheet, which is similar to the one I provided in Google Docs here. And basically you type down your answers in Google Docs, okay. Or if you cannot type it down, you can also have the option to write, okay. But for writing, it's not preferred because maybe it's hard for me to read your writing. But if it is unavoidable, it is also allowed, okay. But basically if you write it down, I will write it down, you have to send it, still have to take a picture of it and then put it in Microsoft Teams, okay. So what you have to do basically, once the paper is given, write down your answers and then you resubmit through Microsoft Teams, okay. And basically the submission will close automatically at 12 p.m. So you have to submit by 12 p.m. okay. Okay, and the structure of the final exam is basically similar, okay, similar to the previous one, okay. So basically there will be 3 sections, okay. The first section is 40%. Please answer all questions. Section B will be 20%. There are 3 parts. I think for this semester, there will only be 2 parts. Okay, but anyway, you still have to answer all the questions in section B. In section C, there are 3 questions. You can choose 2 out of 3. Okay, choose 2 out of 3. So make sure you make the right choice. Okay, because it will take some time for you to answer the final questions as well. Okay, so basically section A is basically common, I mean, questions that are you can easily Google. Okay, these are the things that you can easily Google, or you can find it in the textbook that I've given, or in the slides maybe. Okay, you can easily find it. Okay, but the task for you, or the challenge for you, is that you cannot simply copy and paste the answers that you find. Okay, what I want you to do is to write the answers in your own words. Okay, because in some cases I will put your answer sheet in, Turnitin, which can detect plagiarism. Okay, so if it is found that you simply copy paste, then the answers would not count. Okay, so just so remember to, you can basically, you can take the points. Okay, but try to change the structure of the answer, and the structure you can put it in your own words. Okay, but of course there are some answers that may not or cannot be changed, right? For example, in terms of the definitions is quite similar, right? And then in terms of calculation also, it's also quite similar. Okay, so and the answers for the calculation also is if everyone get it right, is basically the same. Okay, so that's part A. Okay, so and then part B, section B. Okay, there will be 3 parts. No, for this semester there will be 2 parts. Okay, so last semester there was 3 parts, but for this semester there will be 2 parts. Okay, so it is the style of the question is similar to what is here, what I've shared. Okay, so the style is similar, but the questions will be different. Okay, so you have to get used to how to answer part section B as well. Okay, so hopefully through the class today you get some idea. And then section C, there's 3 questions. You only answer 2. Okay, but if you answer 3, I will only take the first 2. Okay, and then the third one I will ignore. Okay, so I will just take the first 2, and then we will basically that will be part of your final marks. Okay, so this one is more general, and I think this requires a lot more critical thinking in how you answer. Okay, so this is question 1, 2, 3, and basically, although the answers, if it is correct, it should be similar, right? But if sometimes we can detect if you are copying each other. Okay, it is quite common to see, especially when the assessments are done online, so where students copy each other. Okay, so that also is something that you have to be very careful with, right? Because basically, if you are caught cheating, okay, basically the default, okay. Okay, so this is the warning here. Any form of cheating or attempt to cheat is a serious offense which may lead to dismissal. Right. So if you are caught cheating, the default is actually I have to report to the disciplinary board, and then you have to there's a case for you, and then either you will be suspended or you will be dismissed. Right, because this is one of the highest sins in academic life. Okay, and of course it's a sin for in the front of Allah as well. Because you are basically cheating in providing the answers. Okay, so that is also something to be very careful about. Okay, so yeah, so if you have any comments or questions, feel free to ask. Okay, yeah? So it's clear, everyone, in terms of the structure of the final assessment.
Well, the question, teacher, eliminate. Maybe we need more time.
That's a question. That's a suggestion. Is it a question or suggestion?
Suggestion.
Suggestion, right? So
Yeah.
the 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 thing is, for exam, it is always limited in terms of the time. Okay, and basically, to be fair, this is the same time for all the previous semesters, and the previous semesters, they don't have open book exam. Okay, and this will be the final semester, basically, for you to have an open book exam. Next semester, it will be physical. Okay, you have to come to IBF, and then have to sit down, write on a physical paper, and then you have to submit before the 3 hours. Now it's much easier because you can even Google. Okay, you can even Google the questions. Okay, and try to find the answers. Okay, and you can look at the textbook. You can look at the slides. Okay, so this for today, this is the practice for you. Okay, and even I see here some people don't even have time to answer. Okay, these are the ones that we have already divided the questions. Okay, so some are not even putting their answers here. Okay, so what we'll do, okay, is there any more suggestions or questions? Okay, so basically the time will remain. Okay, because this is, I think, an advantage for you as compared to the previous semesters. Okay, previous semesters, especially before COVID, they have to come, sit down, write it down, and the structure and the time is the same. Okay, so that is more challenging for them. Okay, any other questions or suggestions? Okay, clear, everyone clear?
What is the time? Is 3 hours or how much?
3 hours. So for the finals, this is the timetable. Yeah, yours will be on principles of economics will be 28th of June, 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. Malaysia time. Okay, so it will be given through Microsoft Teams. Okay, and you have to submit your answers through Microsoft Teams as well. I will give you the answer sheet. Okay, basically it will be similar to this one. Okay, and basically it's up to you how you want to answer, but don't copy and don't cheat. Okay, so that's the main idea. Okay, but of
Doctor,
course,
the answers were we write them on Word, Microsoft Word.
yes, on Microsoft Word.
Okay. How about
Okay.
if there is calculation?
Calculation, I think there's only one calculation maybe, and then there will be, I think there will be one question on drawing the graph. I think drawing that graph would even drawing that graph is I think can be done on Microsoft Word because it's just lines you can put. Okay, is that clear?
Yeah, but some of us, like, we are not good in drawing.
You can't draw a line on Microsoft Word.
No, for me, I don't think I can.
Okay, so now is the time to practice. Yeah, so open Microsoft Word. Let me show you. Okay, you can open Microsoft Word. So usually the graph um, for economics is just like this. Okay, there's one, and then maybe you make it. If you make it want to make it clearer. Okay, and then you can just basically copy paste if there's a lot. Okay, and then copy paste. Okay, and then if you have to draw demand curve, then you can draw like this. Okay, then you make it, then as yes. Okay, if you want to draw a supply curve, make it like this. Then you can just copy and you paste. Okay, so and then if there's a movement, you can just put. Okay, and then insert another one. Okay, so this is the simple way. Okay, but if you cannot, you can draw on a piece of paper, take a picture and attach it to the Microsoft Word. Okay, is that clear? Is that clear, brother?
Yeah, it's clear.
Okay, so it's quite easy actually. I took a few only, I don't think it took 1 minute for me to draw like this. Okay, so if still not possible, you still can draw on a piece of paper. Okay, so there will be question like this. Okay, and this is I think related to demand or supply, something like that. Okay, but this basically the structure, and I think in terms of the topics that will be covered will be similar to the past year paper. Okay, and most of it will be macroeconomics. Okay, macroeconomics, although there will be some microeconomics. Okay, so hopefully you've already done the quiz that I've given, because that is counted as the final mark as well. And I think by after the class today, I will also give you another quiz that will cover the macroeconomic topic. Okay, so that one also you can have 2 attempts. Okay, and basically the highest mark will be counted for you when you answer. Okay, so that's also something that can probably help you for your final assessment. Okay. Anything else? Anyone want to share or ask?
Doctor, like for questions like literary questions, how many lines would we write to respond like on a question?
Literary, I don't understand. What is literary question?
Like questions like define this, or what is the difference from this and that.
Okay, so that will depend on the marks. Okay, so usually if it is a valid, if it is you see the marks is four marks, right? Basically you 4 marks, you have to have at least 2 valid points. Okay, so it's up to you. If you have to do a whole paragraph to reach a point, then that's what you have to do. But if you can reach a point, if you want to convey your point and you can do it in 1 sentence, then that is also accepted. So the idea is that as long as the point is understandable and is realized, okay, because this is the challenge for examiners as well. Okay, and this is not only for my subject. Sometimes if you write and you write too much, the examiner may not realize that you have made a point. Okay, because there's a lot that we are going through, right? And then if it's not clear what your point is, then it may not be counted. Okay, but if you can write in 1 sentence, okay, this is point number 1, this is point number 2. So for me, usually if you have 1 valid point, it will count as 2 marks. Okay, it will count as 2 marks. So to be safe, for example, if there is 4 marks, to be safe, at least you try to do 3 points. Okay, you try to make 3 points. Okay, and for okay, what we'll do is we'll go through each of your answers. Okay, we'll go through each of your answers, And basically I will ask the person that has been assigned to explain your answer, and then I will explain how I mark them. Okay, how I mark them. Okay, and how I give the marks. Okay, is that clear? So that's what we will do for the class today. Okay.
Okay, doctor.
Okay. Anyone else has any questions or any suggestions? Okay. Okay. So let's go through the questions. Yeah. So section A, question 1, question 2, Sister Munira. Okay, Sister Munira. So the question, Sister Munira, please explain your answers. Yeah. So the question is, what is economics and what are two essential principles in economics? Are you there, Sister Munira? So this is your answer, yeah?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, so if you can just try to explain the main points.
The main point is economics is basically the if I highlight it here, okay.
Yeah.
So it is basically concerned with the way to accommodate the unlimited wants of people and the limited resources. And so the two principles I highlighted here is the marginal principle and also the opportunity cost principle.
Okay, so like this, right? It's also, I would also encourage you, because this is Microsoft Word. Your answers will be in Microsoft Word. You are also encouraged to highlight the main points. Okay, so if you write it down, you can also highlight, like Munira mentioned. This is the main point. You can put the highlight there, and then it's easier. And then, you know, even for other subjects, I would also recommend for you to do that, right? So then the examiners can, okay, this is point 1, point 2, point 3. Okay, so for this question, okay, basically there are two questions there are two parts to this question. Part number 1 is what is economics. Part number 2 is what are two essential principles of economics. Okay, so basically if you break it down, what is economics is 2 marks, and the two essential principles in economics is 2 marks. Okay, so the 2 marks of the second question, okay, what are the two essential principles of economics? Basically, you you do not have to explain it. Okay, you do not have to explain it, but to be safe, you can explain it. Okay, you can explain it. Okay, because the marks is basically for, if you mention two essential principles, is enough to get the remaining 2 marks. So the first 2 marks is the definition of economics. Okay. Number 2, okay, the remaining 2 marks is just mention what are the two essential principles. Okay, but if you explain, it is better. Okay, if you explain, it is better. Okay, so then you will get 4 marks for this. Okay, so that's how I will examine and provide the marks. Okay, and then the second question, Sister Munira.
Yeah, for the second question, basically I just explain the situation of ceteris paribus, where we assume all other influencing factors are equal and unchanging. And also why is it important? Because it will help in determining causation by isolating several factors, so that we have only one factors to be considerate of.
Okay. Yeah. So this one also, okay, it's 4 marks. Yeah. So you must have at least 2 points. Okay. So the ones that are highlighted by Sister Munira are valid points, and I will accept it. Okay. But I think it's more than 2 points here, and it's just to be safe, right? So sometimes, although you put 3 points, it may be 1 point is rejected, or 1 point I don't realize. Okay, but if you put 3 points, then it is safer for you, and you will get the full marks. Okay. Okay, thank you, Sister Munira. Okay, next one, Brother Diallo, Brother Bailo. You're here, but
Yes, doctor.
why haven't
Yes,
you put
I'm
your
here.
answers?
Doctor, I'm sorry, I was not feeling well today. Like I had a headache.
Okay.
So I just like looked at the answers and at the questions, and I tried to answer my head. Like.
Okay, so what's in your head? Number
Okay, the
3.
question here is Adidas is having a sale on shoes. The first pair of shoes is full price. The second is 25% off, and the third is 50% off. Describe how this sale relates to individual demand and marginal utility. Okay, like it's basically it's like there are two questions, like describing how this relates to demand and individual demand, and then for the marginal utility. For the individual demand, we can say that for the Adidas shoes here, because we know that in for the demand, the more the higher the price, the higher the price, like there will be less quantity provided for that good, and when the price decreases, there will be more quantity for that good. So here we can say that the first pair, because it's full price, the first pair of shoes is full price. The second, yeah, like the demand the demand for the second shoe will be more than the demand for the first and the third one. Yeah, and for marginal utility, we know that marginal utility is about like when are you it's about satisfaction, like for example, if you have what you will pay for something that you that you want a lot will be different from like when you get that thing for this for the second time. I don't know like how to explain, but for here, like the first pair of shoes is full price, the second is 25% off, and the third is 50%. So the marginal utility for the first pair will be higher, and for the second it will be less high, and for the third it will be yeah, lesser also. Yes, doctor, that's how I see it.
Okay, so do you see how challenging it is for the students in previous semesters when they don't have an open book. Okay, so they do not have anything to refer to, only their memory. Okay, so they can only refer to their memory. Okay, so this will happen to the students next semester, and maybe to the students that fail this class this semester, you have to repeat again next semester. Okay, so and then another challenge, yeah, brother Bairo, is that basically you during the exam later, you cannot use the excuse that you have a headache and you just leave the answer blank. Okay, so if you have a medical emergency, you have to go to, I think you have to get an MC, and then you have to write a letter, and I think there will be a special exam just for you. Okay, so this is the preparation. Yeah, if something happens during the exam day, you have to have a letter from a certified medical center. Okay, and then write a letter to IBF to postpone, or because of emergency you cannot attend the exam. Okay, so that is the only way. Okay, but if you leave it as it is, okay, the answer sheet, basically it will be 0. And if you give an excuse that you have a headache and your answers are in the head, basically 0. I cannot help you. Okay, but of course in the class now it's okay. Okay, but based on your answers now, okay, based on your answers now, maybe I will only give 2 marks. Okay, and that is, I think, out of maybe out of pity. Okay, so yeah, so for this question, okay, for this question itself, um, basically the first aspect, you are correct that you are in the first part. You mentioned that there are 2 parts, okay, relating to individual demand and marginal utility. Okay, but the right way of answering this question, okay, the textbook way, basically is when you see the situation, okay, you can answer what is marginal utility first. Okay, basically once you can define marginal utility, then you will get to relate it to what is the demand. Okay, so in this case, basically the answer uh, is basically you have to define marginal utility. Okay, and basically marginal utility is where the buyer of the product will derive less satisfaction for each additional unit consumed. Okay, so in this case, once the first unit that he consumes has the highest, okay, that you are right, and then the second unit uh, is the second highest, and the third unit is the lowest. Okay, so in that sense, you get that point for marginal utility, but you do not get the point because there is no clear definition. Okay, so only 1 point for marginal utility. Okay, and then from there you can say that the individual may only demand 1 pair if it is full price and not to buy the second or third pair. But as the price of the product falls, the individual is now willing and able to purchase additional shoes, which is related to diminishing marginal utility. Okay, and in that case, it is related to that demand. Okay, so the individual demand here, okay, the first part here, okay, this part, you can get 1 point, and then this part another point. So only 2, and then this is the reality as well. Yeah, if examiners sometimes they might provide you or give you points based on mood. Okay, based on mood, based on the environment, based on their utility, their satisfaction, okay, whether they are in good mood or bad mood, right? So sometimes if I feel good and I think this, at least this person has done his best, maybe I will give 3 marks. Okay, so this is why I think it's also important for you, once you have submitted your answers, to make a lot of doa. Okay, make a lot of doa, do Salatul Hajat, that your examiners for all the subjects that you take are in a good mood when they are examining your paper. Okay, because sometimes when they are in good mood, they might give higher marks to the student that they are marking during that time. Okay, and if they are in bad mood, maybe they will be more stingy. Okay, so this is the reality. Okay, because we are humans, and this is how the reality that happens. Okay, yeah. So this is number 3. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Number 4. Okay. So try to answer. It's okay, Brother Bayo. Just try to answer. Number 4.
Okay, doctor. Like number 4, the government can improve
Sorry.
economic efficiency.
Before that, is there any question for question 3? Is clear?
So,
Yeah,
like, doctor, for this, like, marginal utility, how will we know that we have to define it, because it's not in the question?
Because you look at the marks. Okay, it's 4 marks. Okay, and basically that definition will help you to answer, because when you look at the definition of marginal utility, it is related to the demand. Okay, so even if that question does not mention about definition, to be safe, just put in the definition. That's to be safe. Okay, so maybe some of the questions will be like that. To be safe, the definition will help you to get the marks. Okay, is that clear?
Yes, doctor.
Okay. Yeah, and then question 4. Yeah, the government can improve economic efficiency by forcing individuals and firms to participate in the market. Explain 2 situations when government intervention is beneficial.
Two situations we can say, like when there is a monopoly in the market, the government like can intervene. And for the second situation, when when there is no good distribution of the goods, or sorry doctor, like I didn't look at it.
Okay, so like this, maybe I'll give 1.5. Okay, because this is valid. Okay, monopoly, but then you have to elaborate. Okay, why does the government have to intervene if there is a monopoly? Okay, is all monopolies bad, or are there cases where monopoly is actually quite good, like natural monopoly, or yeah, monopolies that are required because of scale? Okay, so this one you can get maybe 1. Okay, but because there's no elaboration, then you cannot get the full marks. Okay, and then no good distribution of goods. Okay, maybe 1 or half a mark. Okay, but of course, you get the idea that this is basically government can intervene when there is inefficiencies in distribution. Okay, but then you have to elaborate how can the government, why is this a bad situation? Okay, maybe because when there is no good distribution, there is inequality, and therefore the government intervention is justified in order to provide more efficiency. Okay, so this is the way basically to get the full 4 marks. Okay. Okay, thank you, Brother Bayo. Okay, so now question 5. Question 5 is Sister Amira. Are you there, Sister Amira?
Yes.
Okay, so question 5, can marginal utility be negative, and briefly explain with an example.
Marginal utility is the extra satisfaction when we as a customer buy goods or services provided. And this concept is basically used for customer that who willing to pay more for whatever they want. So the marginal utility can occur either positive, 0 or negative. So basically, yes, the marginal utility can be negative. Because once it means here when customer buy something, or not buy something, buy additional items, it could cost them harmful compared to the satisfaction that they get. Maybe they will feel disappointed. So that's the good example that I could provide. Sugar is needed in our body, but if we taken excessively, then it could cause diabetes or whatever disease.
Okay, so for this answer, okay, you are, I think, in the right track. in terms of, I think the definition is good, but it's not accurate. Okay, because the marginal utility is extra satisfaction that a consumer gets when having additional goods and services, right? So when you have that additional, then there is the margin. Okay, and basically the second part where you explain that uh, negative marginal utility happens because of harmfulness or the damage it will cause, that is also accurate. And then the example, I think it is acceptable. So for this answer, maybe it is 3 or 3.5. Okay, so just that you have to be a bit more accurate in terms of how you define the marginal utility. Okay, uh, but maybe if I'm in good mood, I can give 4 marks. Okay, so this is the way. Okay, so but to be safe, of course you have to make it accurate. Okay, yeah.
So I will pray that you will in a good mood when you mark my
Yeah.
paper. Amin.
So yeah, so not only for my paper, all the papers. Okay, because this is basically during the what we will do during the revision period and the exam period. The lecturers will go through all the assignments and all the exam papers, right? So we will be quite occupied with this, and every day our task is to go through students assignments. Okay, so sometimes, okay, it's because we are not perfect, we are humans too, so sometimes we miss some points. Sometimes there are cases where some lecturers they miss a page of the student's answer. Okay, so they miss to mark. Okay, that is, and then depending on, sometimes we are working at home with the kids, and then distracted. So these are the things that you have to pray that the lecturers are aware and in a good mood. Okay, so hopefully all your lecturers will be in a good condition when they answer your answer sheet. Okay.
Amin.
Okay, so that's number 5. Number 6, what is the difference between slowdown in economic growth and a recession?
Okay, actually I'm gonna elaborate, but after that I don't have enough time. So basically I just only managed to jot down a few lah, but basically it's wrong lah after our discussion. So from my understanding, the difference between the slowdown in economic growth and recession is the slowdown in economic growth means that there are still economic growth occurred, but in a slow rate, or it been reduced compared to the recession, whereby there's no it's not no, there's no the GDP is decline. So when there is no product, there is no goods, the unemployment is increase. So that's basically what makes the difference between the slowdown in economic growth and recession.
Okay. Yeah, so based on what you mentioned, maybe three, 3 or 3.5 marks. Okay, because I think what's missing is the textbook definition of recession. Okay, because you mentioned correctly that recession happens when there is a negative or no basically reduction in terms of growth. Okay, but it the you can only define the economy to be in recession when the negative growth happens for 2 consecutive quarters. Okay, meaning to say that the first quarter is -2, but if the second quarter is +2, then it's still not recession. So
Okay.
recession only happens first quarter -2, second quarter -3. Then that is a recession. Okay, so it is only happen when 2 consecutive quarters there is a negative, right? So that is the recession. Okay, but based on your written, okay, if if for example, yeah, in some cases maybe you don't have time, okay, but if you put something and that something may or may not be right or wrong, okay, so in just judging from the answer, okay, maybe I will give 1 or 1.5. Okay, so the idea is because at least you made some attempt, and it may not be fully accurate, but at least it is relevant to the question. Okay, so you still get some points for that. Okay, so of course if it is unrelated to the question, then you don't get any points. But if you get you put an answer and you may it is right or close to the question, then you may get some points. Okay, so basically don't leave the answers to be blank, because if it is blank, I cannot help you. Okay, but if it is something that is related to the question, although it is not accurate, maybe there will be 1 or 2 points for you. Okay, so this is something that you have to also be aware of. Okay, but of course the most important thing is the time, because as you know, it's not there's a lot of questions. Okay, so try to divide the time. Okay, maybe after this, what you can do as part of your exercise, try to answer this question again and see how long do you take to answer these questions. Okay, and I think even there's also some past year exams paper that is available, but you have to go to the library website. Okay, so you have to see whether they have already uploaded it there. Okay, the library website for the past year questions. Okay, so that also will, if you try to do that, it may also help you to keep the time. Okay, okay, thank you, sister.
Sir,
In
I have a question.
yes.
Actually, I got the answer from Google
Mm-hmm.
because I tried to find in the slides and also the textbook, but I couldn't find under which topic is the recession and also a slowdown of the economic growth.
I think this one growth, huh? I think
Yeah.
GDP, how we calculate GDP, and then one of the topics there. But it is for sure in the textbook. Okay,
Oh, I
so you
really
can
couldn't find it.
so you can find it in the textbook or in the slides, because the slides is basically just taking the points from the textbook. But I'm quite sure there is the points about recession and GDP in the slides. Okay, but for sure it will be in the textbook.
Okay.
So even now is a good time for you uh, to
That,
get familiar with the textbook, because the textbook basically you can just do Control F and then try to find the keywords. Okay, so yes, the answers are on Google. The answers are on um, in the textbook, but for this type of question, maybe okay, it will be very close to what the answers you find. So there is a very strong likelihood that you copy and paste. Okay, but my recommendation is that try not to copy paste exactly. Okay, or maybe you copy paste and then try to change a few words here and there. Okay, so that then it is less similar to to what you find. Okay, so this is for this type of question, that is unavoidable because it is related to definitions, and the definition more or less is the same for everyone. Okay, so you may be inclined to simply copy and paste, but try to change a few words and here and there. Okay, okay, any other questions before we move to the next one? Okay, now Sister Sundus, question 7 and 8. Question 7, what is the opportunity cost of unemployment for an economy? What social problems have been linked to higher rates of unemployment?
And in the first question, I wrote the 3 points.
Mhm.
And the first point is that loss of income for the unemployed. if people are employed, the income will be less, or even some will be zero. And the second one is that less tax revenue and higher government borrowing. And if the taxes are less, the government may borrow like from the World Bank. And the third one is period of economic recession. And what social problems of the social problems I mentioned, like poverty, the debt, homeless, and crime, all this will increase.
Okay, so yeah, so like these are uh, the points are there, but it needs a bit more elaboration. Okay, it needs a bit more elaboration. Okay, maybe I will give full marks, but to be safe, you have to elaborate more. Okay, in terms of making it a proper sentence. Okay, and I would also recommend for questions like this, put the definition of unemployment. Okay, put the definition of unemployment. Okay, let's break for a while for the azan. I'll go for a toilet break for a while. Yeah. Okay. Okay, thank you, Sister Sindus. I think another question is question number 8. What is demand pull inflation?
Yeah, I will answer the upward pressure on price that follows shortage in supply. Or in other words, you can see that demand and pull is asserted to arise when aggregate demand is aggregate demand in an economy is more than aggregate supply.
Okay. So, for this, okay, you must have at least two valid points. Okay, demand pull, and then you will provide the reason of demand pull, and then what is the shift, aggregate demand and aggregate supply. Okay. Oh, by the way, this document you can still edit. Yeah, you can, if you have the answers in front of you, you can just copy and paste and update the document in real time. Okay, so if you have other questions later on that you have not answered yet, you can still put the questions here. Okay. But okay, so for back to the question, question 8. So if you see here, if it's just based on what you have written here, maybe I will give one mark. Okay. But I think, yeah, you can just easily Google questions like this. Okay, you can easily Google the questions like this, demand pull. Okay, but basically it is based on because of the increase in demand, increase in demand. Okay, so here it's just upward pressure on prices, but you do not mention demand. Okay, but of course when your demand is high and the supply doesn't change, there will be a shortage. Okay, but so this is just a mark that is given out of pity, but also out of the knowledge that you have made some effort to answer. Okay. Okay, clear. Thank you, Sister Sundus. Okay, next one, brother Ibrahim. Sorry, yeah. Do we call you Ibrahim or Sulaiman? Mahmud. Okay. Mahmud. Sulaiman Mahmud Ibrahim. So Sulaiman is your father?
Sulaiman is my son, my grandfather.
Okay. Ibrahim is your father?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mahmud. Okay. Brother Mahmud. Yeah. So this one I think is quite straightforward. I think you don't have to explain. Basically, you have to show the calculation. Okay. And basically I will just look at whether you have shown the calculation. Okay, this is 1 point, and if the answer is right, so another point, 2 points. Okay, and then part B is GDP per capita. Okay, GDP per capita, but here the keyword is growth rate. So you have to see here what is the growth rate in GDP per capita. Okay, so you have right, this is right. Okay, this is the GDP per capita, but the question asks what is the growth rate. Okay, so in order for you to get the full mark for this part, you have to get a percentage mark, percentage. Okay, so this is right. 523 is the GDP per capita. But what is the growth rate? Basically, you have to compare with the previous GDP per capita. So the previous GDP per capita is 500. Okay, and basically there is an increase in sorry, what happened? So the previous one was 500. Okay, and then basically the difference is yeah, 0.81. So this is the difference, right? So now you can get what is the growth. So basically the growth rate is 23.81 over 500, and you times 100. Percentage, okay, in terms of the growth rate is 4.77%. So this is something also have to be careful. Okay, number one, you have to be careful that there is uh, two, two, two sections in this question. Okay, basically two answers that you have to find. Number two, even for this, you have to be very careful in what the question intends for you to find. Okay, so GDP per capita, yes, but you are looking at the growth rate. Okay, so the growth rate of GDP per capita is this. Okay, but based if you provide the answer that you provide just now, I will give 3 marks because this one is not there yet. Okay, so once you add this one, then you can get the full marks. Okay, clear?
Yeah.
Okay, and then the second part, what phase of the business cycle is the global economy experiencing at the present time?
Yeah. Is at the present time is experiencing recession.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I did not search anything. I just thought it on my mind
Why?
because this COVID-19 has so much impact on the economy right now. That's why maybe the economy will be on that level.
Okay, so for that answer, it is incorrect. But I may give 1 or 2 marks. Okay, depending on how you elaborate recession. Okay, because recession is, again, you look at the definition, is a consecutive negative growth. Okay, but as you can see all around the world globally, now it is positive growth, and to a point that most countries now have inflation. Okay, prices are going up because the growth is too much. Okay, and this is basically demand pull inflation. And if you look at the business cycle, okay, the business cycle chart, right? Basically, the period, the phase that happens after a recession is a recovery phase. Okay, so if you look at the data, basically, we are in a recovery phase right now. Okay, so the inflation happened, yes, but that was maybe earlier this year, okay, or end of last year. Okay, this year we're starting to recover. Okay, most
So
countries
now
have
we are
opened up.
we are at which stage?
Sorry,
So now we are at which stage? Which stage are we? Like the phase?
recovery or through or recovery.
Through, okay.
Yeah, so through is when it is it is at the most lowest, but now going up. Okay, and then we are recovering and growing. Okay,
Yeah.
so that is the phase. Okay, so it's between there, and then you can elaborate further on what this phase is about. Okay, and even provide some evidence maybe. Okay, so that's basically part section A, yeah, how to answer and how I assess section A. So hopefully you get some idea on that. Okay, thank you very much everyone for providing your answers. Okay, for section B. Okay, section B, who is it? Part 1, huh? Part 1. I'll just go through the answers, I'll just go through the answers. Okay, so here they are asking about 6 statements. Indicate whether each pertains to micro or macroeconomics. So is it micro or macro? So in this case, you just have to put the answers. You don't have to elaborate. Okay, because there's 6 questions and there's 6 marks. Okay, so you just put either MIC or MAC. Okay, so yeah. So here the answer is, okay, in this case you will get 3 points. Okay, so one of this is wrong, and then of course you leave the two questions here. Okay, so one of it is wrong. Okay, so you have to figure it out on your own. Okay, so if you answer like this, you give the answer like this, then 3 points. Okay, so something similar will come up for this final exam. Okay, so just I think the textbook helps a lot because the questions basically are coming from the textbook. So yeah, if you want to really um, um, do the revision, you can try to answer the questions at the back of each chapter. So that those are the ones that are basically are being the questions are being formed from the textbook. Okay, and then part 2. Okay, what effect will each of the following have upon the supply? Okay, so this one maybe we will ask you to elaborate. Part 1, part 2. Part 2, Amira. Sister Amira. Okay, what effect will each of the following have upon the supply of television sets in a competitive market? Explain your reasoning in each case. Okay, so question number 1, an increase in price of electronic equipment used in producing television sets. Okay, so your answer is?
The price of the TV set will increase and the demand will be decreased due to the higher price.
Okay, so for this answer, you will get 0. Okay, so that's why you have to really be careful and look at the question. So the question asks, what effect will each of the following have upon the supply? What will happen to supply basically? Okay, so the answer you give has nothing to do with supply. It's just about price. And then there's about demand. Okay, so can you try again? If there is an increase in the price of electronic equipment, what happens to the supply?
The supply will increase due to the lesser demand from
Why is
the
that?
because when the price of the electronic equipment is higher, then maybe what we the factory that produce the TV set will need to how to explain. I'm confused.
Okay, so the idea here is be very careful in the reading the questions. Okay, so here it says that an increase in the price of electronic equipment used in producing the television sets. So this is the price of the component.
Okay.
So if you are a supplier and suddenly the price of the equipment that is needed to produce the television set increases, basically this increase your cost of production.
Okay.
So when cost of production increases, now you will buy less electronic equipment, right? If you have a fixed budget. Okay, but then the price of the equipment increase now. So what happens is that at the end, you will produce less.
Oh, okay, understand.
So the supply in the market, you will only supply, you will still supply, but at a lesser amount because now your cost of production reduce. So what happens to supply is that basically the supply will decrease because of the higher cost of production. Okay, and if you want to elaborate further, then you can say the supply curve will shift to the left. Okay, so here basically there's for each question because there's 4 questions here, right? So for each question there's 2 marks. Okay, so basically if you say there is a decrease in supply, there's 1 mark. And then you give the reason why, because the cost of production has increased. That's 2 marks. That's enough.
Fraction. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so that's part one. Okay, number two, a decline in the number of firms producing television sets.
Is it this? Doesn't the question is just the same? The answer of the question is just the same.
Are you sure?
I so basically for the second, I answer
Uh-huh.
the supply of the TV set will face shortage and the price will be higher.
Okay,
But
so here be careful lah. Number one, the question doesn't ask about the price. You just have to
okay,
answer the supply. Okay, and
okay.
the terminology has to be right. Like law, right? Law, if you get the terminology wrong, it can bring a different meaning. Okay, so here shortage is not the right answer. Shortage is actually referring to it has to also come with the demand as well. Okay, but the correct answer is that supply of the television set decrease.
Oh, okay.
Okay, why? Because the number of suppliers have decreased, or the
Okay.
number of sellers has decreased.
Hmm.
So then you get 2 points.
Oh.
So you give the right answer, either it increase or decrease, and then the reasoning behind it. Right?
Okay.
But in number one, also decrease, but it is a different reason. It decreased
Number
because of the lesser cost of production.
lesson.
No, sorry, the higher cost of production. The second one, supply decrease, but because there is
Less.
less producer.
Okay.
Okay, so then you can get the 2 points.
Oh. Okay, noted.
Okay, so maybe for this semester also there will be the similar questions like this. Okay. Okay, number three. Who's number three?
Me.
Yes, number three, large new tariff on imported TV sets.
Answer that the price will increase and the economic growth reduces. Because
Here you get 0.
yes,
Why? Your
I don't
answer
think there is
here,
a
you get 0. Do you know why?
no.
Because you are not answering the question. The question asks, what effect will happen on the supply? The question is not asking about the price. The question is not asking about economic growth. Okay, so can you try again? What will happen to supply if there is a large tariff on imported TV?
The demand of the television will
No, it's not the demand. It is asking what happened to supply. I didn't ask about demand. I asked about supply.
So the supply will be increased
Why does it increase?
because because we imported TVs. So
Okay.
the TV basically the TV set basically stock basically increase in the market.
Okay, what is the tariff?
Uh,
What is the tariff?
Price.
Doctor, because the price has
there is a
increased,
kind of tax.
so also the supply also will increase.
Okay, tax is right. Okay, so what happens when you tax something?
Mm,
It will increase the cost.
It will increase the cost, right? So the
yes,
price will increase.
price increase.
So what happens to supply?
Also increase.
Why does it increase?
Supply. Sorry. Uh, Also the supply will also not increase, decrease.
Why?
Because there is a tax. When there's a tax, meaning more expenses.
Yes. Yeah, so you look at, for example, if you buy an imported, what's an import? Samsung TV maybe. Okay, so when Samsung wants to bring and sell it to Malaysia, previously it was 1,000 ringgit, for example. But now the government imposed a tax. Samsung, if you want to bring, you have to pay additional 10%. So now because of that, originally it was 1,000. Now because of the tax of 10%, they have to sell it, the price that they have to pay additional on top of the original price is 100. So now the price will be 1,100, right? So that will increase their costs as well, because they have to pay the tax to the government, and therefore they will most likely reduce the supply. Okay, so basically this will reduce the supply of imported TVs, because the question is looking at imported TV, yeah, and the tariff is basically the tax on imported TV. Right, so if there is a tax on other things, okay, on the thing, if there is a tax that is imposed on the good or service, then most likely it will reduce the supply, because this is kind of a barrier to entry. Okay, so if you want to sell, for example, if you produce something and suddenly the government impose a tax, so once you sell it, you have to pay the tax to the government. So you are less likely to, or you are likely to reduce the supply of the thing that you are selling. Okay, so this is the idea. Okay, is that clear? So basically, you don't have to answer what happens to the price. You don't have to answer what happens to demand. This is just what happens to supply. Okay, because the question is what happens to the supply, and you give the reason. Okay, so basically the supply decrease because of the tariff, which increase the cost of importing. Okay, so it's related to, I think, the cost of, not related to the cost of production, but it is a form of barrier to entry. Okay. Now question 4. New inexpensive online streaming subscription which make televisions more popular among consumers. Who was it just now? But Sister Sundus.
Yeah, I said the demand of the TV will decrease.
Okay, the demand, of course, zero. What happens to the supply?
The supply will increase. The supply will increase
Why is it increase?
because the of the new and inexpensive that the people they use.
Okay, so in this case, you get 1 point because maybe supply increase is correct, but the reasoning has to be clear.
Doctor, may I?
Yes.
May I think the reason is the supply is increase. I think the favorable changes to the television. That's why the people like to want buy more television.
Okay, people buy more television is demand.
Oh,
But that the next step, you are in the right direction. So when people demand more, okay,
yes,
if you are a seller, and you see, oh, people are demanding more of my product, what will you do?
We do more supply. We supply more.
Yeah, you supply more. So because of the quantity demanded, that the demand of TV increase, now suppliers will want to supply more. It's that simple, right? So you are in the right track. Just have to arrive. What happens to supply? And then give the reason why supply changes, right? So this is this is the exercise. Okay, so hopefully you understand how to answer this question. Okay. Yeah, so be aware what the question wants. This is looking at supply. Okay, and then give your reason. Okay, part 3. Is it part 3? Brother Mahmood. Brother Mahmood. So you answer all of this.
Yeah.
Okay, so which of the following are included and which are excluded in calculating this year's GDP? Why? Number 1, a scholarship received by an economic student. Is it counted or not?
No, it is not.
Why?
Because a scholarship check cannot be counted as good or service.
Okay, so only good and service is counted in GDP, is it?
No.
Okay, so what is a scholarship? What is a scholarship?
Scholarship?
What happens when you receive a scholarship?
When you receive a scholarship?
What happens if you have a scholarship? What happens?
Then you will be able to do your day-to-day activities with it.
What how if you don't receive, you cannot do your day-to-day activities, is it?
No, you can.
Okay, so what is a scholarship?
It will increase your income.
Okay, so you get money.
Yeah.
Yeah. So scholarship is basically a financial transaction.
Okay.
Okay. So basically, why scholarship is not included? Because it is a financial transaction.
Okay.
And it is not. It doesn't represent income earned by selling or buying goods and services. Okay, so then you have to basically look at the factors that counts and doesn't count as GDP.
Okay.
Okay, so these are, I think you can see in the slides or in the textbook. Okay, how do you calculate GDP and what are the factors? Okay, and number 2, government purchase of missile from private business.
Yeah, it's included because it's count as government spending.
Okay, so this is right. Okay, so 2 points because it is part of the component of G. Right, so we have C plus I plus G. So this is G. So even if government spend on things that are destructive, it is still considered as part of the GDP. Right, so even if like in the United States, they spend trillions on buying weapons, which is not actually contributing towards development, but contributing towards destruction.
Yeah.
That is also still counted as GDP. So this is, I think, some of the many criticisms of GDP. Okay, but of course, it's for this question, it's sufficient to say it is accepted because it is part of government spending. Okay, and then number 3, the purchase of a used tractor by a farmer.
Yes, it cannot be included because it was produced in the previous year, in the previous year. So it is counted at previous GDP.
Okay, so then you get, yeah, this is correct. You get full marks. Okay. Okay, thank you, brother. Okay, now we go to the last section. Okay, the last section, we have 3 questions. You choose 2. Okay, you choose 2, but of course we will go through all of it. Okay, so section C 1A. C1A, Sister Munira. Okay, Sister Munira, describe the difference between real GDP and nominal GDP. Which concept is more useful for measuring change in the economy over time, and why?
Basically, for this question, I provided the definition of real GDP and nominal GDP, and then for which concept is more useful, the answer is use real GDP as because real GDP it's already included the inflation rate, and it can be compared to the previous year, so we can see the growth.
Okay. Okay, so here there's three parts to the question. Yeah, describe the difference, which concept more useful, and then why. Right. So if maybe for me, I will break it down. This is 2 marks. This is 1 mark because it's just which concept. So you just choose which concept and then justify. Okay. So answering the first part is just by providing the definition. It's enough. Okay. And then second part, you say which one, and then you provide a valid point. Then this one is already full marks. Okay. For B, I think you can try later. Okay, so C, Amira, discuss the merits and demerits of GDP as a measure of economy's output performance and a measure of standard of living.
I couldn't find the merits actually because maybe I couldn't understand the question, but basically, I do not know whether it's correct or not. But basically, the merits of GDP as a measure of the economy is maybe more accurate because it using monetary value.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's more. It also, and then usually the GDP only count based on the new and final product. So basically, it's avoid the multiple counting. That's the merit. For the demerit, I believe that the GDP doesn't count the cash received by the some of the what we call illegal businessmen like gambler, and GDP also does not include the income received from the what we call uh, like the what we call housewife or whatever. Right now uh, we are in normalization to sell the products online. So some of the seller, they receive their money online, not online, uh basically the GDP failed to calculate the income received by the some people that work from home or normal business. And also the GDP also failed to count the loss incurred by the what business or the management where when the worker take more leave compared to working days. If I'm
Okay. Okay. So those are valid points, but the challenge is for you to put it in writing, and it is understandable to the examiner. Okay. So here it is 8 marks. 4 valid points will give you full marks, but to be safe, give 5 at least. Okay, so maybe out of 5, 2 is rejected maybe. Okay, so if you want to be more safer, give 6. Okay, but of course 5 will be sufficient already. Okay, if you think 5 is valid, then okay.
So if the question asks for merit and demerits or advantage or disadvantage, so should I give for example, 3 disadvantage, 3 advantage, or I just could give any point that as long as I think it's relevant?
Yeah, as long as it covers what the question intends. Okay, so here you can say maybe two demerit points, two merit points, 2 demerit points, and one of the merits is related to performance, and then it's also maybe have to relate it to standard of living as well, or maybe the demerits talk about standard of living, merits talk about performance. Okay, or the demerits talk about both. Okay, but it has to cover everything that the question intends, and as long as everything is covered and there is at least 4 valid points, you can get the 8 marks. Okay.
Doctor,
Yes.
can we make table for this question?
Can, if you want. Yeah, you can as well. Oh yeah.
But do you like it or not?
Yeah, I think for this one, it's not necessary to have a table. But you can. I think it's okay as well. As even yeah, you can maybe make it into two, one merit, one demerit, and then if the points touch upon performance and standard of living, it should be acceptable. Okay, so each question maybe you think it is it's easy, maybe you can find the answers, but you also have to be aware of the time. Yeah, this is something that you have to be very, very careful. Okay, maybe you take some time to do the table, try to make it pretty, try to highlight this, highlight that, make the try to elaborate more, right? And then once you realize, oh no, you only have half an hour left, right? So this is something that you have to be very careful about. Okay, so imagine you are in the real exam hall, okay, and then you have a timer in front of you. So make sure please try to do that as well. Try to do that and recreate that environment so you are also aware of the time. Okay. Okay, now I think question 2. Question 2. 2A, yeah. 2A. Who's question 2A? Sundus. Are you there, Sundus?
Yes, doctor.
So what effect should each of the following have on the demand for petrol in a competitive market? State what happens to demand. Explain your reasoning in each case and relate it to the demand determinant. So an increase in number of cars. Okay, so your answer is?
The demand will increase for petrol and then the price will increase.
Why is it? This is your answer?
No.
This is computer.
It is not this one.
So you okay? Let me hear it again. Your answer is demand will increase.
The demand will increase for petrol and then the price will increase also.
The demand will increase in petrol.
Yeah.
And then?
Also the price will increase.
Price will increase. Demand increase, okay, demand increase because the price increase, is it?
Oh,
so
the price will also increase.
Okay, so here, okay, you have to read the questions carefully. Yeah, what effect will it have on the demand? Okay, so basically what happens to demand and explain why this happens to demand. So your answer is that demand increase and then price increase. So the question asks why. Basically, when you say demand increase, you have to give a reason why. Understand?
Yeah.
Okay, so why does demand increase?
Because because of the increase of the number of cars, the people will need more
petrol, right? So
yeah.
They will buy more.
Yeah.
Right, so there is a more consumers or buyers of petrol.
Yeah.
Right, so this is where you get the point. But if you answer the price increase, you don't get a point. Understand?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the second part, the economy moves into a recession. What happens?
That the demand of petrol will decrease because of the recession. The price will also decrease and the supply will increase.
Okay, demand decrease. Why does demand decrease?
because of the recession.
Okay, why does demand decrease because of recession?
Because there's a bad economy.
Okay, what happens in a bad economy?
There is maybe less money to buy
Yeah.
maybe the petrol.
Yeah, so less money or less income.
Yeah.
So when there's less income, people are less likely to buy petrol or to do business and travel.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why demand decrease.
Yeah.
Right? So you have the right thinking. You just have to think a few more steps to arrive to the reason. Okay, Sundus?
Okay, doctor.
Okay.
Sir, you
Yes.
repeat the answer for an increase in the number of cars?
The increase in number of cars. Okay, so basically the demand will increase. Demand for petrol will increase because there will be more buyers of petrol.
Oh, okay, I understand.
Okay, so then you get 2 points just for that. So if you say demand increase because there will be more buyers of petrol, then 2 points.
Doctor,
Yes.
can we relate it to the complementary good?
Can as well. If there is a question like that, complement, substitute.
In this question,
Which question?
the increased number of cars.
Increase in number of cars. Yeah. Yeah, it is a complement. It is a complement. Yeah. So that's also valid. Okay. And then number three. Number three, who's Mahmud, brother Mahmud.
Yes, sir.
Increase in the price of car insurance, taxes, and maintenance.
Yeah, so the increase in price of car insurance, taxes, and maintenance cause decrease in demand.
Mm-hmm.
Petrol, because when there is an increase in tax, there must be a decrease in income. And when income decreases, so the demand curve, and when income decreases, the demand for the petrol will decrease also.
Okay. Yeah, so for this answer, you get full marks. Okay, but you are you are including things that are not required, right? Because you are repeating, for example, this part.
Okay.
The earlier part you don't need.
Okay.
You just say there is a decrease in demand. Enough.
Okay. Okay.
Because if you write too long, you will take your time, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so just straight to the point. What happens? Okay. Decrease in demand. Because there is an increase in tax.
Yeah.
So this is enough.
Okay. Yeah.
Or yeah, this is one of the ways. Even this one, you can also, this is also a form of complement as well.
Yeah.
Okay, because this is also part of the components of the car. Okay, insurance and tax and maintenance. So the price of the complement increase. This also basically reduce the usage of cars, okay, and then decrease the demand for petrol. Okay, and then number 4, consumer expectation.
Yeah, there will be increase in demand because
Okay.
Change of consumer expectation. So the demand of petrol will increase like today because there is a change of there is an expectation that the uh, price of petrol will increase later on.
Okay, so this is right. This is correct. Okay, but some this one you can get full marks, and some may answer, for example, the demand for petrol will decrease in the future.
Okay.
That is also correct.
Okay. Okay.
Understand? So if you answer like that, but if you give a good justification, it's also accepted. So the demand for petrol increase today, but tomorrow it will decrease.
Decrease. Yeah.
And so some people may answer tomorrow or in the future it will decrease. So that's also acceptable. As long as you give the root, explanation, it should be okay. Okay, now B. B1, B2. Kutaiba, are you there, Kutaiba?
Yes, doctor.
What's your answer? Why you haven't put the answers?
Actually, I have written my answer, but in the correct place, in incorrect place. I was.
So just cut and paste.
I my answer is in the A part.
Yeah, so can you cut and paste it?
Okay, okay.
Okay, so you can see here it's a collaborative document, so you can change it immediately, right?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so the first part, boost in research and development by computer companies produces more powerful and efficient computers and equipment. What happens to the aggregate demand?
So this will increase the aggregate demand
Why?
because there is the favorable changes and people will demand more and more.
Okay, correct.
And this will also uh, influence the GDP, because when they buy more, it will also consume increase the consuming.
Okay. Another part, I think you have to be very clear here, right? Because here it asks effects on aggregate demand and output.
Yes.
Okay, so this one also basically you have to also mention, to be safe, mention output. What happens to output? Okay, so output also increase because of the increase in aggregate demand. Okay.
Okay.
So basically it is a shift in aggregate demand. And
To
also to the right,
shift
right?
where in the right, yes.
To the right. And when you, I think if you can illustrate this, basically, let me just show you. Yeah, so here, right? So this is aggregate demand. It moves to the right. And this is basically a movement along the line. Okay, so there's movement along the line. And this is basically the quantity. Okay, so the quantity, let's put a star here. So it moves from here to this star, from the blue star to the green star. So the output also increase because it is a movement along the supply line. You understand?
Yes, doctor.
Okay, although there is a shift in aggregate demand, but there is also a shift, a movement along the supply line. Therefore, you see the equilibrium has changed and the quantity of output also increase. Okay. Yeah, so it would help if you can sketch on your own. Although this one doesn't ask you to draw. Although this one, yeah, although this one doesn't ask you to draw, if you can do it on your own and then illustrate it, then it's much easier for you to answer the question. Okay, number 2, income falls in several countries that trade heavily with your country. What will happen to the aggregate demand and the output?
In this scenario, the demand for the foreign good will also increase, because we are getting from the goods for cheaper price. So the import will increase and the export will decrease, and this will also affect the real GDP, as the law is when the real GDP, sorry, the export is declined.
What happens to aggregate demand?
Aggregate, I think aggregate demand, the demand will decline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's what you have to put. You haven't written it there.
Yes.
Yeah, so this is part of net export. Right, so because net export is export minus import, right? So export decrease, import increase. So net export decrease. So when net export decrease, aggregate demand decrease.
Yes.
Right, so when aggregate demand decrease, you can draw the graph. Basically, it is movement to the left, right? So this document is basically moving here. Okay, moving the other way around. And so then the output also decrease. Right? So remember, you got the right idea, but you didn't write it down, aggregate demand. Because the question asks about what happened to the aggregate demand curve. Okay, so you have to mention aggregate demand curve, shift to the left. Okay, and then therefore the output also decrease. Okay, brother?
Okay, yes, yes, doctor.
Okay, number 3. Prices fall across all. Who's doing number 3? Yeah, Munira.
Because of prices decrease, the demand will increase. So the aggregate demand curve will shift to the right.
Prices fall across several industries. Okay, shift to the right. What happens to output?
The output will increase. Will increase the output, hence shifting the aggregate demand curve to the right.
So okay, so you got it the other way around. Aggregate demand shift to the right, then output increase.
Oh. Okay.
Okay, so yeah, so this is actually quite subjective, yeah, because when it comes to aggregate demand and aggregate supply, you can argue, but the answer is correct. Okay, but basically, I'm just saying that for these types of questions, it's not necessary there is only one answer for it. Okay, so maybe there is different types of answers, as long as you can justify the reason. Okay, because like aggregate demand and aggregate supply, the movement depends on the time frame, right? So maybe you can argue the time frame in the short term, or the long term, or the immediate term. Okay, so in some cases, maybe some people can say that the aggregate demand will not shift in this case, because this has different factors. Okay, because when it comes to price, it is actually not a component of shifting or movement in aggregate demand. Okay, and basically there are other factors that will shift the aggregate demand, and this is not the factor. Okay, but it is also okay if you can justify that when the price fall, the demand basically increase, because in the market generally, if price fall, demand for it increase. So then the component of consumption and investment may be increased, and therefore that will shift the aggregate demand curve. But in some cases, maybe some person will answer, this will not shift the aggregate demand curve because price is not a component of aggregate demand. Okay, so maybe aggregate demand doesn't change, but maybe aggregate supply does. But the question asks about aggregate demand, right? Because when you see price fall, it may also be looking at the perspective of the supplier, right? So in the short term, when price falls, supplier will increase the supply because they have less cost of production. right? So this is also something that you can think about. Okay, so basically there's no right or wrong answer. As long as you can justify, provide a valid reason, then it is acceptable. Okay, number 4, after budget surplus.
The government cut personal income tax, hence it will increase the disposable income. Then people will have more money to spend, and the aggregate demand will shift to the aggregate demand curve will shift to the right.
What happens to the output?
The output will increase.
So that will you have to also include to get the full point. Okay, because in the question they ask about output. Okay. Okay, I think yeah. Last question. Last question. Last question. Country has seen. Who's this? Who's the last question? Kutaiba.
Doctor.
Last question.
I think my question is B. My question was B.
No, your question was A.
Oh, I wrote the answer of question B.
Okay, it's okay. You can mention B. Okay, B. What happened to B?
Okay. As the question was asked, as a financial advisor, in this scenario, when the inflation is rising and we use monetary policy of there are two types of monetary policy and contractionary. One is contractionary and second is expansionary. So we use
Okay,
contractionary.
let me stop you there. Let me stop you there. You will get
Yes.
0. You will get 0. You keep
Okay.
answering. Okay, so you have to read the question very, very carefully. Okay, the question doesn't ask about monetary policy. The question asks about fiscal policy.
Oh.
Okay. So then you have to answer fiscal policy. Okay, so this is just so you can try to
Yes.
Okay.
I think I answer my first question. Yes. That's why I'm saying monetary policy. Yeah.
See, so also you have to remember, be careful on where you mark or you yeah, you marking. Where do you what you call the answers? Make sure you
Yes.
label it correctly. Okay, label it correctly.
Yes.
Okay, so
Sorry for I think I misunderstood.
So it's okay. So let's say your answer for A.
Yes, for monetary policy of
So now you are the chairman of central bank, and now
yes.
the GDP is increasing, but also inflation is happening.
So I will advise to apply contractionary monetary policy.
You don't have to advise because you are not the chairman. You are doing it. For monetary policy,
So I will apply.
the central bank doesn't advise the government. They will do it.
Okay, so I will apply contractionary policy, monetary policy to manage the inflation rate because
How do you do that?
I will higher the interest rate, and that's this will lead to people to save more, and I will also it will also cause the consumption and investment to slow down. So the two both impact will lead to the low inflation rate.
Okay, so that is acceptable. Okay, there's here 8 marks, four valid points. You can get full points for that. Okay, but because this is subjective, because in this case, okay, there is increase in GDP, okay, but also inflation. So it depends on what is the target of the country. Okay, so maybe the country doesn't mind high inflation as long as the GDP keeps increasing. So maybe you can also do, for example, other policies. Basically, you can justify we don't do anything because now you are increasing GDP.
Yes.
And if you can justify that, that is also acceptable. Okay, so my point is that there is no right or wrong question. There is no right or wrong answer as long as you can justify your answers and it is valid, then it is acceptable as well. Okay. So I think you get the idea, yeah. So basically, this is the final exam. Okay, the structures are like this. These questions may be similar. Okay, maybe some questions are repeated in a different way. So please be aware of what the question is asking you. Please be aware of the time. Please label the questions correctly. And make sure you at least try to answer everything, and then I can at least give you some points. Okay. And then another point before we end is that you have to answer the quiz, and if you haven't given your assignment yet, I can still consider. Yeah, just submit your assignment. At least I can give you some marks if you submit. But if you don't submit your assignments, I cannot give you any marks. Okay, but of course there will be some penalty for late submission. Okay, to be fair to your friends. Okay, and then there will be another quiz I will maybe share after this. Okay, and you will answer I think in 2 weeks. Okay, before the final exam, hopefully you can answer that because that is also counted as your final mark. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Okay, any questions or any comments before we end the class? Okay, so in that case, I think
can you like show us the ones that did not submit, maybe so that we know.
if you haven't submitted, you should know.
No, we've all submitted, man.
Okay, so if you already submitted, then it's okay. But let me just check. Yeah, I think there's a few. There's a few that hasn't submitted. So this is just a reminder for you. Okay.
Doctor, I have submitted both of the assignment.
Okay, then you shouldn't worry about it.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, but usually when I start to assess this one, I will try to message the student, okay, and ask why you haven't submitted. Okay, so don't worry about it, but just check if you have submitted or not, and if you haven't submitted, please submit as soon as possible. Okay, and then answer the quiz, and then there will be another quiz. Okay. Okay, so I think we can end the class with tasbih kafarah and surah al-Asr. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Wal asri inna al-insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. I think that's all for this semester. Okay, I wish you all the best in the subject and also your future subjects as well. So hopefully, inshallah, we can meet face to face next semester. Okay, and if you have any questions or any concerns related to the subject, feel free to contact me during the revision week. Okay, so next week we don't have any more classes, but we'll be revision week, and then your exam will be, what is this, on Tuesday. Okay, Tuesday 9 a.m. until 12 p.m. Okay, so I will release the question paper at 8:45 inshallah. 8:45 you can access it already. Okay, and then but remember to submit it before 12 because I will close the system automatically. At 12 you can no longer submit. Okay, so thank you very much everyone. I apologize if there is any shortcomings on my behalf, and hopefully you have benefited from the knowledge and it can assist you and it can provide you with some assistance for your future career and your future endeavors, inshallah. Okay, Assalamualaikum.
Is it necessary that we must answer in words, Microsoft Word?
It is highly encouraged. What is the other option?
To write and take a picture.
If you want, you can. But if your writing is not good, I cannot read, and my mood is not
Doctor,
good. You can,
like
you can.
for me, I have like a tablet, so I can write on Samsung Note.
Yeah, if
It's
you want, you
easier
can.
for me.
Yeah, if you want, if you prefer like that, it's okay.
Yeah, okay. Then. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yeah, but as long as you put it back in Microsoft Word.
Okay.
Okay, so resubmit in Microsoft Word. Yeah, so if you think it is better for you, then it should be okay. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam. Thank you, Dr.
Waalaikumsalam. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullah.